I'm Imogen. Thanks for clicking on this video. Today I'm going to be talking about what I'm currently propagating. Taking propagations and planting them up, making new plants from my existing ones is one of my favourite things to do, and I just love the fact that I can grow my collection really easily for free. So because of that, I tend to always have at least some plants propagating. Even though it is February and quite cold, I have still been taking cuttings and making propagations, and although they've been a bit slower growing than they would in, say, summer, I am starting to see roots and eventually these plants will be ready to be potted up. For the most part, my favourite propagation method is just sticking cuttings in a jar of water, and that seems to be pretty good for most of my plants, but I do have some others in sphagnum moss or put cuttings straight into soil depending on the type of plant they are. First of all, I have a couple of jars of Tradescantia. So this is a little jar of Tradescantia zebrina cuttings, and I've kind of shoved them in this, I think, pesto jar, and I did only put these in maybe a few days ago, but I can already see roots. I've mentioned this before in my Tradescantia video, but in my experience, Tradescantia are some of the easiest plants to propagate. There you can already see the tiny little roots forming on this cutting from two nodes. There's one there and also just there, which is incredibly fast even for Tradescantia. I've got 4 cuttings. That one has grown the most roots. I'm starting to see the beginnings of other ones on these ones too. So yeah, that's my little Tradescantia zebrina jar. Using the same method of a jar of water and cuttings, I also have some Tradescantia scillamontana or cobweb Tradescantia cuttings growing. So I have 2 really long ones which have been in here maybe a few weeks, and also some fresher, shorter ones. These are the roots on the 2 longer ones. They've got them coming out of 2 nodes, which is great, and there's also some new little shoots coming off the nodes as well. So I should probably get to potting up these quickly, and I can then either add them to my existing pot or put them into a new one for maybe trading for other plants. The leaves have gone a little bit floppy. These were, well, especially this one, was a very long cutting to start with that I just chopped off my plant because it was getting really leggy. So this one might actually be due another cut as soon as I've potted it up. As for these other 3 propagations, I can't see any roots yet. I think these have been in water for maybe a week or so, so I'm not really expecting anything yet. But in a couple of weeks, they should be the same as the other cuttings. These are also shorter. I sort of purposefully did that so they wouldn't immediately flop over when I pop them up, like those other longer ones probably will. So yeah, that is my jar of Tradescantia scillamontana. Those taller type jars are what I generally use for propagations, but sometimes they're just not the right size. So for example, I have a lot of Calicia repens cuttings, which are just in this sort of shallow glass jar, which I think had a goo pudding in. Because these cuttings are so short, they would just fall down a taller jar. And so having a sort of shorter one like this allows me to keep an eye on all of the propagations and means that they won't go entirely underwater. These are a bit of a mixed bag. I can see some roots on some of them, but they are really small and delicate anyway. Now I could take cuttings directly from the plant and just put them into soil immediately, but I quite like to just put them in water for a little bit to develop the roots before putting them into soil, partly because I really like seeing the roots grow, but I'll probably pot these up fairly soon. And finally, I have my big propagations box. So I think that's actually a sort of seedlings tray, but I find it really good for rooting plants in sphagnum moss. So here I have a sort of smaller tray which is full of dampened sphagnum moss, and I put some satin pothos or Scindapsus pictus argyraeus. These haven't been in here too long, so I'm not expecting to see any roots yet. but I have successfully used this method for quite a few plants, including a string of bananas, Hoya, Lipsalis, mistletoe cactus. They all rooted really quite well in sphagnum moss. All I do is give the moss a spritz with water every so often, and it sits on a windowsill above a radiator and gets lots of light. And because it's in an enclosed box, it has humidity as well. That's my little sphagnum box. And that's everything that I'm propagating at the moment. I'd quite like to make this into a sort of monthly or every other month series to see how my propagations are getting on and making new ones. So let me know if you find that interesting. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!